Thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart for coming. We are going to give some time now for Mr. Warrick. Has some slides that he wants to share with us. We want to give him our attention and let
for once.
Let us take some time to share, and then afterwards, Dr. Boyd is going to have a few words. Okay, so you have the floor.
Okay.
It's all yours.
Are we okay? All right. Because I have a whole lot. I've got a lot to go through. Almost didn't come Thursday night. I have raging insomnia. Like, I don't know where I got that from. Maybe staying up all night typing all these dumb things. Well, anyway, so it's 5 in the morning, Friday morning, which seems like a month ago. I still hadn't slept, so I'm going to be driving by 7. I got to sleep, so I took an Ambien. At 5 in the morning, at 7, I was just falling asleep. I got to go. So I called the airport, or called Kayak and got a flight, so flew up, and I don't have to be back for a while, so I almost didn't make it. But then my wife came in at about 7. Said, "You sure you have to go?" Because I mean, she cares. Yeah. And said, maybe I don't. Who would I call? And I don't have her number, so I don't know who I'd call. Now there will be somebody that came a long way, longer than I, and I think where'd she go from? Baltimore? Oh, from Maryland. I think she won the award. So, was there anybody else that came far?
Lakewood.
4 blocks.
It's funny. Well, so a couple of things that I picked up from folks. I use this because if I don't, there are no nouns in my life anymore. You'll see. Nouns are the first thing to go. The first thing that I wanted to mention was how incredibly, grotesquely young I was when I came. People are telling me, well, I didn't realize you were that young. Yeah, I was like 25 or 26. And I student taught with Ron Lucian, who's still alive. That I can't believe. I figured, because he seemed older even when I was student teaching. My wife, she said, "I bet you're talking." Anyway, student taught with him, and then and then at the end of every rehearsal, he would say, "Okay, you take care of things. I'm going to the real estate office." So he was selling real estate as much as he was teaching. And at the end of the year, he said, "If you can get something to do for a year, I'll get you an interview. I won't get you a job, but I can get you an interview." So I went back and did my master's, which was smart, and then came back after that. So I guess I was maybe 25 or 26. And at that time, some of you were 18. Think about it. I mean, we could have been married. And nobody would have said anything. It's like, that's scary. Now he's getting gross. And then was here till 81 or 82. So a couple of things I remember was how certain families never left. There was always a Spizak in the band. It'd be band night, 7th grade. I'm thinking, okay, we're finished with these Spizaks. I went, oh God, there's another. So I remember that. I remember how supportive the parents were. Because where I went to teach, like I was telling Dr. Boyd, the norm was you'd go for parent-teacher conferences and they'd set up a tape recorder and record you as if they're going to sue you. And it was very normal to be sued. It was like, oh, you didn't get sued yet? So I taught there 28 years at New Trier High School in Winnetka, which is it's a money school, big time. Limos, kids would drive up, and best instruments and private lessons. But the system was very much like here. They had private lessons during the day. I could go on and on, but I want to tell you just one brief story about that. When I went to 2 stories, maybe 3. I don't know when your flight is, but screw it. When I went to interview at Lakewood, while I was here, I was like, I'm going to have a heart attack, or I'm going to have a divorce, or I'm going to have a mental breakdown, because it was so much work. Because I was, you know, the band was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I wasn't getting any more help. You used to have to sell pizzas and pick up. I'd forgotten that. And collect newspapers and, you know, all this stuff just to raise money to rent 9 buses to go to an away game. We'd go 9 buses. We'd have to leave. I remember last night I was sitting. I'm digressing. No, you wouldn't do that. Well, back when I was here, I didn't have diagnosed ADD. It's since been medically diagnosed as terminal ADD. Anyway, as I was thinking, I was saying, I was watching, and the band across the field, it was 2 minutes, 1 minute till halftime, and they still hadn't gotten up. I used to have nightmares, literally nightmares, about me looking at the clock and it being 1 minute and all 300 people were sitting there. It would take 5 minutes. I mean, I would have to have you guys go out on the field 5 minutes before halftime. It took forever because you guys are just so slow. So I don't know the point of that story, but anyway, when I went to interview, I signed with an organization called Lutton Personnel Service, and their job was to find you jobs. You would give them 10% of your first year's salary, and they would find music jobs. So I'd get these postcards. One was in Hawaii, one was, and I would get them. If they said marching band, they would go straight in the trash. If there's any way I could keep from directing a marching band, I'm never doing this again. Where can you put 300 people on a football field without bumping into each other? You can go, you know, the drums, all they could do is go up and down the railroad track and just stick the flutes out there somewhere, have the flags over in some other county, walk around a little bit and maybe make the circle, make it bend a little bit. But anyway, so one came up for New Trier High School, and I went for the interview, and it went well, and I got to the superintendent level, and they didn't have a marching band because the card said no marching band. I would just be doing jazz band and concert band. Oh man, this can't be real. Nobody has a job like this. So anyway, I went and interviewed. This is great. And sat down with the superintendent at the end of the day, and he's asking questions. And the topic of marching band hadn't come up. They didn't have one. It hadn't come up. And I thought, okay, well, there's something going on here. They're lying. So I said to the superintendent, one of the last questions, I said, I just want to make sure. I just have a question. You don't have a marching band, right? And he goes, and we never will either. I said, this is the place for me. He said he had been superintendent in a number of places, and like 90% of the phone calls were from marching band parents. He didn't want to have anything to do, so he got. There's a whole nother long story. Anyway, I wanted to mention, I thought the band did great last night. This is your 8th year?
This is my 6th year.
6th year, okay. Well, you got, I think, 1 or 2 more years to go before you can go. I think I was here 6 or 7 or 8 years. Plus, we did so much in the time that I was here. And this England trip, how many people went? I mean, so a couple of things that I have. I found this last night. Well, whatever last night was. Night before last, I went in the balcony in the attic, concert brain, and found a bunch of stuff. And I brought some of it, but Becky Grasser brought everything, so I didn't have to get a lot of it. I didn't have to get a lot of it out, but I have a lot of this stuff that I was going to lay out. But one thing I found was a sheet that has everybody that went and where you stayed in England. Their address. So I'm going to give it to Matt Traum to put online, and I'll leave it up between him. He also said he would pay for the meal today. I couldn't believe that. So
he's our new favorite band. We love you, Matt.
So just for the sake of whatever, I'm going to pass this around, and you can see everybody that went. I don't think the chaperone's on here, but you can see where you stayed in over there. So that's kind of fun. So that'll eventually get to him. The other thing I was looking for, and I thought, oh man, I couldn't find it. It turned out that Jenny Groman brought it, which is the list of, everybody got one. But one of the things on there was where I think on the plane on the way back, I handed out a questionnaire. Somewhere in my balcony, somewhere in my attic are the actual questionnaires. What I did what I actually did was just pick some of the responses. I did find one, and I wish I could give everybody theirs because they're somewhere up there. So here's the deal: I've got 10 years to find them. So if you have a reunion in 10 years, I'll come back. I'll come back. Yeah,
That's a deal.
I'll have my walker, and I'm actually 66 now. Retired 8 years ago. Anyway, so if anybody knows, there was one that I found, because there was a box of England stuff when we went, and somewhere up there's a box of England stuff. Well, no, what I found was England stuff when they came here. So that's what I have. But I found Hershey. Anybody know Kathy Conley? Still?
Yes.
Still? Like you still have contact with her?
No.
Because I'd love to get this to her. This is her sheet. But I mean, just amazing memories that she wrote. But Jennifer saved the day by finding that.
I have electronically too, if anybody wants it, let me know.
That's a deal.
And I have a copy as well, and Matt has said that he's going to scan most of the stuff I brought. So
He has no life.
there's no like,
Or money after today. The other thing that I have, and I don't know if he would do this, if somebody wants to do this, this is pretty much all of those Friday night things that win the programs for marching band. Like there's one here, band night such and such, Harding Middle School, Dave Kostick, he's a 7th grader, little Jennifer Groman, Emerson Middle School. I mean, that's the very first one. That was volume 2, so I didn't do this the first year. But I think they're all here.
I have a bunch from volume 1.
Well,
You got the whole set?
yeah, well, I don't have volume 1, so I'm going to pass this around. I'm afraid to see what you got out of my trash. She was the quartermaster because she did everything I didn't want to do. Everything. I gave it to her. She was great, wasn't she? I mean, I'm going to pass this around.
They are my hero.
If you want to give it a brief look, I don't know if you want to deal with this. I mean,
I'll be happy to.
I guess now you are. But all the music we played, I mean, it's pretty stunning. So I'm just passing it around, and make sure he gets it, because I don't need to take it home, because my kids will just throw it away someday. I found this, which is kind of interesting. We forget that they came here. They did, and it was, remember what do they call those things? It's a noun. Fire plug things. Fireplaces. Hydrants. Painting the fire hydrants. I mean, it's so much.
They named them Tully because but he passed away recently.
He did, yeah. Oh, by the way, because I want to digress just for a second, Jeff Stanway and I have been trying to communicate. He's had a soccer game. Who does soccer at 10 a.m. in the morning? We've been trying to FaceTime or whatever. He wishes he could be here. He couldn't. He was going to come. The problem with him was, I didn't know this, but at his age, whatever it is, still don't know how old he was. He always seemed old. To me, he always seemed like this old man. Anyway, his medical insurance, medical wouldn't cover him going to a different country, so he couldn't come. He could have, but he couldn't. He said that's just not prudent. So, we've been trying to get each other on the phone where he could say hi, but it didn't work. And I'm not sure the point of that story. Anyway, I found this. This is in a nutshell the trip when they came here. Let me just tell you what they did. They came. I think a lot of us met them at the airport on July 27th. This doesn't even have the year on it. Oh, it does. 1980. They came after we went there. On Monday was the All-American Cookout at Lakewood Park, and I remember the guys getting out of the car. There was like a revolutionary group and an American group, and they came up to me and they said, "Who do you want to win?" And Jeff is standing there and I'm standing there, and I said, "Americans." He said, "British." I said, "All right, this one time you can let the British win." So remember them shooting guns in Lakewood Park? We had to get special permission for that. not real ghosts. Then the next night, that was Monday, on Tuesday night, we took them to an Indians game.
Yeah.
And then on Wednesday night, we had a dance and pool party at Madison Park Pool. Boy, I don't remember that. I don't remember that. And then on Thursday night, both bands rehearsed. On Friday night, August 1st, we had a Winterhurst skating party. You remember that? You really remember that? I don't even remember Winterhurst. I mean, okay. Then on Saturday night, we went to Canton for the Pro Football Hall of Fame parade. I remember it being, maybe I'm wrong, I remember it being hot. That was at 9 a.m. Then we came back and they performed at the Lakewood Arts Festival. We didn't, I don't think, but I think they did. So that's Saturday. Then on Sunday evening, there was a concert in the park, the Lakewood Hometown Band. They couldn't perform because they didn't have a space to perform, but I got to conduct, which was my way of getting into conduct that band. That's the only way I could ever get to conduct that group. I was too young. I mean, every player on there was 50 times older than me. Monday, we went to Cedar Point. I guess we performed. That's the only way we could get in free. That's all. Tuesday, Randall Park Mall. They went. I can't think. We didn't go. I don't think. We would go to Randall Park Mall. Nothing on Wednesday scheduled. And then they went away. They left for 2 days. They went to Toronto and Niagara Falls by themselves. Then they came back, and we had nothing on Saturday. And then there was a church service, and then they left at 5:30. So we kept them pretty busy. Jeff did say he didn't want to perform as much when they come here as they had us perform when we went there. He said, we'd like a vacation. You didn't have a vacation. Somebody asked for a fact. Who was it that asked for a fact? Who was it? Came up to me and said, oh, she did. Okay, well, here's your fact. I found the budget. You guys never knew these numbers. I didn't remember these numbers, but I found the entire budget for the whole trip. And I'm not going to read the whole budget, but the bottom line, just like, are you kidding me? Payment from participants, $111,000. Actually, $112,000. That would be, what'd you pay? $450 or $500? Maybe. Wasn't over $500. Anyway. Corporate donations, $12,000 we got. Anonymous. Pizza sales, $3,500. Ranger buttons, little dollar buttons that cost 10 cents to make or less. $3,000. We had interest of what? We had interest on our, this is amazing. Back then, interest on the money that we had held until we had to spend it was $2,000. It's a celebrity auction, remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I can digress there. $1,000. McDonald's breakfast, I guess. You actually remember this stuff? $425. Ranger cookbooks. There was one up here.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember the story about that. It was just like something somebody did, but they made $82. Why are you clapping? Who did it?
I remember.
I mean, $82?
They help.
Well, today that's like $5,000. And the expenses, airfare, $91,000. England expenses, whatever that is. Oh, that would be buses and things we spent over there. $15,000. Dry cleaning uniforms, Edinburgh lodgings. We had to pay for a motel there. The summer band shirts, $5,000. Gift pictures for host families, $1,200. Telephone calls, blah 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 blah. Anyway, it came down to total income was $135-ish. Total expenses was $118. So we had left over. We got back $17,000. And we kept $500 as a slush fund, so I could probably do something with. That's on here. Amount retained. Okay. I don't know anything about it.
I know who's buying lunch.
$500 isn't going to do it. So that left $16,000, and each of you got $66 back. So as it turned out, counting what you paid $450. That's what it says. So your trip cost $383. Wow. I don't know, but there's a statute of limitations, so I'm going to let him have this to put it. That $500 thing, we're going to let that go. So I guess these are. So when I was up in the attic the other night, I found slides, the old carousel projector thing. And after we came back from the trip, I went and did a lot of lunches and people that had donated. And I haven't seen these slides, nobody's seen these slides for 40 years. I don't even know, something may pop up that's inappropriate. I don't know. I don't know. It's been 40 years, so I don't know. But anyway, so I thought, so the other night at, 3 in the morning, I'm thinking, I don't have a carousel projector. I'm not going to carry it up there. What am I going to do? Oh, Matt Traum. So I wrote Matt, I said, can you find a carousel projector, something to show? He said, sure. So he found it. So welcome. There's no narration because I don't know what's going to come up. But there's not that many. But,
What? Write a piece of work.
So you're going to digitize this and play all the original.
that's pretty much it. Yeah, you just burn through these.
Okay.
If something comes up that warms everybody's heart, just that's the rehearsal of the church service over there.
He sang it with a voice.
I see me. I'm so sure
He sang there. He was never met. He was in a choir.
The racetrack. Did we perform at that track?
Yeah, we did this. Remember it? Oh,
Is that the concert where the wind blew so
Oh,
hard?
yes.
Our feet were off the ground the whole time.
Julie Myers, Ben Neal.
Go back. Can you go back?
Yes, go back.
Down the dead end street.
No, wrong way.
10 years from now, Julie, let's get Julie Myers here.
Yes.
All those Myerses, they were here forever.
Yeah.
That's all right. Okay.
Nancy's there. Kathy
Nancy Welch there.
it's Beth Neal's on the right. Gina. Mary Spencer. Julie.
right.
Yeah. Claudia with the overalls, yes. And Dan Rosberg.
I think that's the famous parade where the cops took us down the wrong day. Some cop, I'm with the band, I don't care, I don't know where we're going. What do I know? Some cop comes up to me, Mr. Warrick, we're afraid we've made a mistake. He said, can you turn your band around? I said, what? He said, it's a dead end street. I gave up, I don't remember, I think I just said, everybody just turn around. Let's go. Oh my gosh. Remember 1980, the drum corps carried timpani? I bought those timpani from some drum corps and stuck them in front of like the smallest people in the band. Did you carry a timpani? No?
No, my sister probably. Holly.
I mean, she was...
Holly did, yeah.
All right, she was smaller than Tiffany, but they're walking all over you with this timpani. I don't know that. Oh, it might be my mother. Maybe she went, I don't know if she went with us or not.
You don't recognize your mother?
That might be my mother, I don't know. My wife and I made those flags. You couldn't buy that back that time back then.
Wow.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. The things we do.
That's yours.
Yes, that's yours. That's
Stephanie sent out a picture the other night of her field commander costume, and there's all these rainbow stuff.
Yeah.
Weren't we hip back then? I mean, we were so socially with it. I didn't even know how to spell the word gay back then. And here we are, rainbow flags, rainbow all this.
Sandy, that's Sandy. That is back there, maybe.
I don't know what everybody's looking at. There were no cell phones. The only reason I had a mustache was to look a little older than the picture.
It didn't help.
So when I moved to Ohio or Illinois after I retired, or after I first thing left was a mustache. I was older then. There's Jeff. A story about that, those whatever colored coats that Selby and I used to wear after the very first game. I don't know what I wore. It's probably some plaid this and stripe that, or I'm probably thinking. You're right. That's why you were filming me. Just keep me straight. Anyway, a guy by the name of, I think, Charles Geiger. He came up to me and he had a daughter in the band and he put his arm around me and said, maybe you can come to the store. So I went Monday and Tuesday. Selby and I went to the store. He's still down there, and he gave it. And I wore that same jacket for the whole time I was here. Free clothes. I don't know that person. Probably England.
Oh, the bridge.
There's Jeff. Yeah. There he is. Oh, there's
Jenny.
Let me digress again for a second. I said something, I teased something on the Facebook page about, remind me to tell a story about how this happened, how it came about.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna do it. I'll tell you why. The reason I saw an article that Sean was in where he had a story about, and I didn't remember any of that. Oh, okay. But actually, no. Before I saw the article, I had put that out. Because I thought this would be a fun story, because my memory of it was pretty cool. And so I put that in there. Then that came up, and it's like, whoa, one of us is really wrong. I said, what am I going to do? He's going to be sitting there, and I'm going to tell this story that's completely different. So I thought, well, I'm going to write Jeff Stanway. So I wrote everything that I remembered, which is irrelevant. Everything I remembered, I sent to Jeff. The next day, I said, okay, we've got an international crisis brewing. I got a former student who remembers one thing. I don't know where he got it. I said, I definitely remember another thing. What do you remember? And he wrote, and it was completely different. So I have no idea how it came about. I don't know who's right. Some of these articles probably say, and they'd be more right than anything. Oh, who is that?
Charlie. First field committee, yeah.
That was that windy day. Yeah, that was somebody. Becky told me now tickets are $175 a person, and you better get your ticket. You got to order now for next year, and if you're going to stay in a hotel, you better be ordering 2 years ago.
Wow.
It wasn't that way. I don't remember what tickets were, but they were.
Carolyn Wilder. Yeah, that was Brunch.
Yeah, really did.
Who was that
That's not my natural color hair. I had it dyed for making me look older.
That's upside down.
What is that?
Probably had a tattoo.
Oh, the tattoo? Is that the tattoo?
Yeah.
It might have been upside down.
Yes. Snow.
Yeah.
Okay. Guess Scotland. Scotland. That would be Whitby, I think.
Yeah, that's the seaport.
I have another, hold on just a second, I have another story. If he were here, I would apologize. I've got a list of people I want to apologize to for things I said or did while I was here. I shared some of them last night with some people, so they're going to help me get in touch with one person. But Jim
I'm
Lakewood,
working on that.
I owe him an apology, and it's for this. Sweetest kid in the world. But remember we had, I don't remember his name, it's probably on there, a Lakewood cop who went with us, and he got us a siren. And we took a siren right out of the cop car and a battery over there to play during a march. I thought it was a cool effect, I really did. But I owe Jim such an apology because he was in charge of that siren and that bass and everything. He was in charge of. The thought today of giving a kid something with a spinning metal thing, no protection at all. I mean, oh, what is that? I owe him an apology. I already apologized to the drummers.
I missed that one.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's why I changed seats.
The timpani hanging before him. That can't be a stewardess. That's a plane.
We took our picture because she's cute.
Oh, news interview. That's just black.
There it is.
That's Debbie Boyd, as it says here, Debbie Boyd. I don't know who that is.
She was the exchange student that stayed here and played xylophone with us. And then when we went back there, she did.
You're kidding. How cool is that? I didn't think of that. Why did I get into this? Well, we didn't take that uniform there, did we?
Yeah, we did.
Really?
Yeah.
I just remember the phone call from our travel agent. I'm sitting at my desk. You're not going. What? There's a strike and there's no way we can get your equipment. You're going to be a choir. That's exactly what he said. I called, I don't know what I did. I think we all met together and had a prayer about it, and within 24 hours it got solved. I think thanks to somebody. Where'd she go? Yes, she pulled some strings, called somebody.
Dr. Boyd in the center.
Then we had to find a trucking company to take all of our stuff, a semi, all the way to Boston because we couldn't take it with us. And it didn't cost anything. Somebody donated that thing.
I think the then mayor, Bob Walker, called the governor. They're seated somewhere along the line to get the thing organized.
Because the Teamsters wouldn't touch us. The Teamsters, I think, were on strike.
Yeah.
But some truck got through, the semi took stuff.
Any complications
So you guys were here when we bought the new uniforms.
Yeah.
Was that what the marathon was for?
Yeah.
I remember the cost of the uniforms that stuck in my mind, $77,000. A couple of hundred uniforms. What are they now? What's a set of uniforms cost?
150 right now is about 120.
$120,000 for 150 uniforms. You guys are fundraising now?
Yeah, we're pretty much done, so we're going to need uniform shop.
If you come up short, Matt Traum. Is your wife here? Your wife's here?
I heard there's a slush box.
Your former wife.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate it, man.
You're very welcome.
It's just money.
Yeah.
There's another tray. Maybe we'll just
Give me a second.
the good stuff's on the next tray.
Yeah, right?
Where did you get the projector?
It's in the attic somewhere, right?
Matt's attic is bigger than mine.
Lakewood High School.
Okay, let's see.
Oh,
The only story about that was Eaton Axel, which had some relationship here in this town.
He had his company here and in the, like in the early 20th century, and so.
The actual Mr. Eden was here? Yeah. I didn't know that. Well, they donated money, I know that. And so we had to do some, she's wearing a uniform, you must have performed at the Axel plant. Oh, there's a
They're the Myers. Mr. and Mrs. Meyer.
There's the Myers. The third row back. My son is named after Bob Myers. Remember Bob Myers got murdered?
Yep. Yes.
And that was right around the time that my son was born, and I named my son, his middle name was Robert.
Hey, Jim, somewhere in there is the birth announcement of your son.
Say it again.
I have the birth announcement of your son.
Oh, really?
Yep.
It was like a concert program, wasn't it?
Yep.
So, single track mind.
Would be.
My family. Oh, that's a cool picture. Those drummer hats were so hard to find and so expensive.
So cool.
Yeah, they were cool. Now, I just wanted to look like the Casper Troopers. I don't care what the rest of the band looked like. I just wanted the drummers to look like the Casper Troopers at that time. The logo was drawn by my sister, and I took care of getting it copywritten. Somewhere there's paperwork that we own the copyright on it, or whatever it is. Not that.
high school. I got it.
Oh, is that high school?
So we want to do
The tattoo.
That's the tattoo?
Yeah. Tattoo.
I just remember the song "The Clog Dance,"
Yes.
and I had a recorder,
Oh, man.
and I recorded and wrote the Clog Dance for you guys. I think we might have played. That's so cool. Nothing to it, but it was so cool.
It's flipped. Yeah.
It's flipped.
That's all we did was sleep and play. Sleep and play.
I don't know.
That's you? Is that you, David? Who is that? Yeah, you? Yeah. I got a story about him. Two of them. He didn't remember either one, so cool. I wasn't real good at following procedure. Seriously, I know you can't believe that, but I was definitely the school is better to ask for forgiveness than permission. Which was a quote from a previous superintendent here. He told us, it was the first time I ever heard that, because we were giving out handouts somewhere with no permission. We got caught, and he got a call, and he said, "Don't worry about it. It's better to do it than to ask permission." I'm going to remember that one. Anyway, I had arranged for the band through friends and whatever, I know people, to play in the 1980 presidential inauguration parade in Washington. I think that might have been Reagan. I don't remember. We were looking at it last night. And so I thought, well, I better get permission. So I wrote him and asked for permission very nicely. Got a very nice letter a couple of days later that he wouldn't. I'm going to have to deny. He gave us 3 wonderful reasons. So it was really a well-written Dear John letter. So if you missed that inauguration, it's his fault. I think that might have been the one that was so cold it was on Instant Reagan. The other story about him was that nobody knows this. I told a couple people this last night, and he didn't remember this, so I'm cool too. My wife had just gotten a job at Madison or some school. She did not want to leave. I mean, you talk about moving and carrying your wife, kicking and screaming someplace else. That was the situation. But there was no marching band where I'm going, so that was the promised land. And So anyway, I got the job over there, and I came back and resigned, and there was an interview and everything, and I made announcements, and well, it was getting harder. It was getting tough at home. I thought, well, maybe it's not worth it. Maybe we'll stay. So I called Dr. Boyd and asked for my job back. I made a mistake. I don't want to go, and he said, no, you're going. He said, where you're going is where you need to be now for your career. He said, so I'm going to have to say no. Plus, we've already hired somebody. So you almost were stuck with me. If it weren't for him, you're stuck with me for another couple of years. I don't know why I have that coat on for something like that. It's the only one I own for.
Probably
Maybe it died?
No, it's okay.
What, Coffin Bowl? That was the concert where the house manager of that place said, I have a story to tell you. I said, oh, really? He said, I was the last person to see Glenn Miller alive. He was in the Army, and he was there when Glenn Miller got on the plane to go across the ocean. And that's his claim to fame. That's a pretty cool claim to fame. They're so adorable.
They were so dumb. Oh my gosh.
Well, my mother did go. I don't know why you're laughing, but my dad wouldn't fly on a plane, so that's why he didn't go.
The little boats.
I promised Jeff Stanway I'd send a picture, so wave to Jeff.
Everybody say hi.
I guess I could send the video. All right, everybody say hi to Jeff.
Fight song and everyone says hi.
We tried to FaceTime, we tried to do the call thing, we couldn't make it happen this morning.
Edinburgh.
Right. Is this the last tray?
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
I love it.
That's upset. That's all right, doesn't matter. Wow. That should be on. So you can have the slides. You guys do with what you want. There needs to be something done.
I'll scan and post them up for everybody so they can watch them online.
I have a lot of paraphernalia that if it goes in my attic, my kids will just throw it away someday. So I don't know who to give it to. I guess Matt.
Here, Matt.
Okay, as long as it gets handed down. But I don't need any of that. Right, now, this is a perfect example of somebody who would shoot up a school. I don't know. What? That's not you. All right. The FBI uses that as who's a potential mass shooter here? I don't know who that was, but I'm sorry. He's not here, so it doesn't matter. Uniforms look so crisp and clean.
Yes.
Oh man.
Yes. That's what it took to move us. They paid for, I think they might have paid for most of the buses, I'm not sure. Those are double-decker buses.
See, I said somebody wrote this.
Yeah.
Eating Axel. Anybody know who that was? Doesn't matter.
Let's see.
I remember saying to Jeff Stanway, well, you guys are on the ocean. Can we maybe go swimming? And he said, the ocean where we live is a form of contraception. We do not want to get in our ocean. Brennan.
Yeah, that's Laura. Brennan.
It's Mark.
When do we have to be out of the room? Midnight?
We got all that.
All right.
This is only the front.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you guys remember something about the plane catching on fire?
Yes, we do.
I remember I was sitting across from, I didn't actually see the fire. Some of you say you did, which is cool. I believe it. They say there was a fire, there's a fire. But anyway, I just remember sitting there and there being, and then I remember the stewardess was sitting in a chair. She was reading something. She goes, oh, jeez. Uh-oh. So we turned around, dumped fuel, which was that's what you do now.
Yeah.
Now they pass it out and make everybody drink it.
I will tell the story. I was sitting on the wing aisle.
All right.
And bang, and you saw just fuel just dumping out of the engine. And so it's a little bit of a wider aisle. In front of us, they have these jump seats that fold down. And the stewardess comes, folds it down, straps herself in, and starts crying. True story. That's a true story.
We were sitting by Mr. Selby, and we didn't see anything, but we heard a bang, and Mr. Selby goes, "There goes a tuba."
All I remember thinking was, what is my legal responsibility? The whole time. I mean, did I get every piece of paper signed? Somebody's gone up, whatever. So we went back and we did whatever we did. We got back on the plane. I don't remember if it was the same crew or not. I don't remember. But I just remember some stewards came up and said, I hear you're having a hard time, a bad day. I said, would you like to sit in first class? I had whatever that is all to myself. Oh, I have a quick, this is funny. Oh, I wish I had time for everybody to tell a funny story. This is my funny story. We had just finished practicing. We were at the Cotham Bowl, or no, yeah, I guess it was. We practiced near there, didn't we? The field near there? Then we went across the street, and we're all sitting on a hill. And we're talking, debriefing, she's probably asking for a fact, and the whole thing. And somebody came up and gives me a note. Said, this is from somebody's parents, could you announce it? And so I just read it. I said, oh, such and such, I don't remember who it was. Your parents are in Middlesex, they'll be here soon. And somebody said, middle of what? That wasn't you? It could have been. I had no filters then. But I had enough filter to not go there. Just let it go by. But I remember thinking, that was the first time in my teaching career where I thought, boy, that's not appropriate. Does anybody else remember that at all?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody saying in the middle of
Absolutely. The first time I heard the word, I think. So.
Okay. Well, you can claim it. Oh, that was cool.
That's the tattoo on your wrist. Yeah, that's correct. That's the thing.
High tech. Church service.
Yes.
Yep. Yay. Couple of things now I'm done.
Yeah.
Biggest one is how supportive the parents were. They would do anything and everything. They'd come to meetings. Other teachers at the school, parent-teacher conferences, they'd have nobody. I would have everybody. I mean, me and Selby and all those guys, they just would line up out the door to talk to us, but they wouldn't talk to the English teacher. That's kind of cool, but I wish they wouldn't. But the administration didn't know how to say no, especially after they said, just ask permission later. I thought, okay. But Dick Boyd was the superintendent then, right? Yeah. He went on the trip with us. He represented America. And I just want to thank you for making. If he had said no, we wouldn't have gone. Like you did when we didn't go to the parade. I'm done. Make sure we get a selfie if you didn't, and I love you all. And come back in 10 years.
Yes.
Who has a 45th anything?
Yeah, we will.
We'll talk about it, but I mean 10 years. Or if you get Julie Myers here in 5 years, because she's somebody I'd really like to see. Just I don't know why, it's just I'd like to see her because she has some special time for her and her family and all that. Love you all.
Well, I've given several hundred speeches around the nation, and there's no way I could match that act we just went through. So I didn't know anything about this thing until maybe 4 days or so ago, and my daughter Stephanie, who was on the trip, youngest person there I think, and she sent me a little thing like that on the computer. And it told about this. And there was a phone number there for Sean, so I called Sean. I said, I don't think I'll be there Friday night, but I'm really planning on being there on Sunday morning. He said,
it's still going on.
He said, that was a real mistake in the newspaper. And if I hadn't called Sean, you'd have been doing this today, and I'd come down here tomorrow morning and sort of have my own little get-togethers. I didn't even know how many even knew me as a superintendent. We were sitting up here before, and I said, one thing you when you're in school, you know your principal, you know your teacher, you know your principal. Very few people know the superintendent. You had Hugh Maben as a principal, and you remember him, but I said, nobody really knows superintendents. And she said, oh yeah, you're the guy that never closed schools on... You know, one day, this was early in my tenure at Lakewood, I got a phone call from the Cleveland Press. It was a reporter, and he said, Dr. Boyd, now I'm not saying this in an embarrassing way, but would you give me an explanation why you're the only school district in northern Ohio that is still having school today? And you know, it was like some of the technical stuff that Jim was mentioning when I wrote letters to him, that he maybe couldn't do something, but people forgot, you know, this is the most highly compacted city in the state of Ohio. We didn't own a bus, and if I did close the schools, which we eventually did a little more of, if I'm driving down the street, I see every kid in town out with his snow, with his sled and that kind of thing. I want to just, I'm just going to give you like a 10-second analysis of my career. I had been a superintendent in Warren before coming here. I was here from 75 to 84. I then was hired by the state of Mississippi to be the state superintendent of education. I stayed there 5 or 6 years, came back to be the head of the Martha Holden Jennings Foundation in Cleveland. 5 years into that, the federal judge here made a momentous decision telling the Cleveland board, you will never, ever again make a decision. And he handed Cleveland to the state superintendent of education, who called me and said, Dick, is there any way you would take that on? And I did. So I ran the Cleveland schools for 3 years, and almost the next day, my wife and I took off for Mississippi again. And so up until a few years ago, I've been a professor at University of Mississippi. So that gives you the career part. When I talked to Sean, I told him about a bunch of stuff that I have saved. And you've been hauling it out. Jim's got a ton of it. So I asked him if, I told him that I've always been somewhat of a rat pack. And at the age I am now, this rat ain't gonna do any more packing. I'm giving away stuff. So I said I'm gonna bring out everything that's in this folder that I have. And so I wanted to, I'm going to hand it to somebody here at the end. In my folder is what I've always thought was the most remarkable headline for a newspaper. We stayed, Mickey and I, my wife, we stayed with Mr. Philpott, who had been the instrumental person in you even being over there in the first place. So the next morning after we had been there, in came the newspaper. And I clipped it, and I have saved it for 40 years. Headline, sorry we're late, we blew up. One of you may have been the one that he interviewed. I don't have any idea about that, but isn't that a great headline? I want to tell you how the trip began, and I want to ask for a little bit of verification here for Jim in a minute. I was in my office on Warren Road. Secretary came in and said, Mr. Warrick is on the phone. He has a guest that he would like to bring down and meet with you. And so we were able to work Jim and this person in pretty quickly. And I got the whole story about why Mr. Philpott was here and what he wanted Lakewood to do. And so I was all for it. I think Jim will tell you that. And the only comment I made was, we can't afford to pay for it. You're going to have to do it on your own, which I know that you royally did. And one thing, Jim, that somehow it's been in my head all those years that brought him to meet you, and you need to tell me if this was the truth, because my memory says that he arrived, here he wanted somebody from Cleveland to be in Cleveland. And the story that I've always been thinking was true was that he got in a cab and started a conversation with the cab driver, told him while he was here, and the cab driver said, well, sir, the Cleveland schools are on strike.
So far, that's my story.
Okay. And he said, but, I've always heard that out there in Lakewood, they really have a great band. That's pretty much why you got here.
That's the official story now.
So that's what Jeff remembered, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what I remembered.
Uh,
I remember sitting in the band room and this guy that looks like he ought to be on some really British TV show walked in. I'm Alexis Philpott. Okay. What can I do for you? Anyway, he said the whole thing.
Well, one of the reasons I didn't really see, we would, Mickey, my wife, and Stephanie, our daughter, went with us, but you didn't see me as much as some of the others, and part of that was because I was doing other things. And one of those things was really being the ambassador, if you want to use that word, because I have a picture I gave Jim this morning. It's a picture of Dennis Kucinich, Tony Sinagra, and Jim Warrick. Well, neither of those other two guys could give away 2 weeks. So I used some vacation time, and so I ended up being that ambassador, and so got really pretty involved with that. So as everywhere you went, I was invited by the mayor of that town to come in and have lunch with him before you performed, and I learned a custom there. They would bring Mickey and me in, and there'd be a few officials there, and the mayor would open up the liquor cabinet and say, dry or sweet? And she had sherry in there, so every day we had either dry or sweet. And then we all took off to the soccer field and sat on the reviewing stand. And that was one thing about the trip. It wasn't great for me because all these parents that went, they're out there in casual clothes. I got a shirt and tie, and so I'm sitting on the reviewing stand dressed like fit to kill, just automatically. Interestingly, one thing I found is that the British were really ahead of us. Every mayor except one was a female. We had one male mayor in that whole trip. The Eaton Corporation, they got involved with us, and I don't think you knew all that much about it, but I sure did, because number one, we got Eaton Corporation headquarters were downtown. They had a plant over there fairly near, and so they really welcomed that. So they kept inviting me to come some things over there, a dinner or a cocktail hour or that kind of thing. I gave Jim another, I guess you had that one too. Another thing that was in the stuff I brought was the day that we went to the St. Peter's Church, and Jim read the lesson and then did the sermon that day. And I don't whether you seem to probably all remember the day. I don't know whether you remember the day that he did the sermon and how good that was, but that was one of the other things that I had. I'd have to say that one of my greatest remembrances that I'll never forget at the tattoo was that piper standing up on that castle.
Yes.
I think of that just over and over again. What a thrill that was. So I want to finish here. One thing I've never had seen was this survey they took about what you got out of the trips. And interestingly, I want to read you quickly something that I thought you got out of the trip. And that shouldn't be me speaking for you, but it was. When we got ready to go and needed some money, I went to at that time, I didn't even know much about the Martha Jennings Foundation, but I applied to them, and they gave me $500 for your trip. And one thing foundations do, I know this because later on I ran the place up there, but once you get a gift from a foundation, they like you to write to them and tell them, what did you learn? So that applied to me for our $500. So I just want to read you what I read. I said this: since the trip cost many thousands of dollars, most of it paid for by the students themselves, it's difficult to pick out one activity and say that the Martha Holden Jennings Opportunity Grant was stipulated for that purpose. However, there were many lasting educational benefits that were derived from the trip, and I'd just like to enumerate and explain 4 of them. The most significant benefit, I think, was the cultural understanding that came to the participants on both sides of the Atlantic. Each of us was housed with an English family for the entire 2-week period, with all of the accommodating and understanding that such a situation causes. Friendships were created which will remain in many cases throughout the lives of the participants. And I don't know whether that ever happened or not. You have to, sometimes you meet somebody and you're a friend of theirs for life. Probably that maybe didn't happen. Those relationships will be strengthened, by the way, when the Red Car Band comes here next summer. Secondly, there were the music education benefits for the English youth. Marching and performing bands are not a part of the school curriculum in England. The Red Car Band was formed as a community endeavor through the efforts of a handful of people. The director, for example, is a funeral director. Parents of the band members had crafted handmade uniforms for the group. The music abilities of the group were approximately at the level of middle or junior high school students in Northern Ohio. But the appearances and resulting publicity of the Lakewood Band, parentheses, we were on national BBC TV nightly for 6 minutes one time while we were there with this story. And so it created an enthusiasm for music among Red Car students. As a result, we've just received word that membership in their band has almost doubled since our visit. Third, there were the educational benefits accruing to our 200 students who made the trip. In addition to the many appearances and clinics, there was time for side trips to many historical sites, including the walled city of York. Another highlight was our trip to Scotland for the Edinburgh Festival, where we took in the world-renowned tattoo, a display of some of Great Britain's best military bands. Finally, and I'll really be interested if some of you agree with this. Finally, although there were many other benefits I could name, an unexpected outcome for our students and the 50 adults who went along was an increased sense of patriotism and appreciation for the United States. Students who had taken as routine the playing of the Star-Spangled Banner over the years found themselves crying as they played it in England. And several of them said later that they were amazed at their emotions over that matter. And I had some of them, tell me they'd been crying. So anyway, that's my experience ago. As I said, you didn't see me much when I was over there or other times at all, but we just came back from I've been on the faculty at the University of Mississippi, and my wife Mickey developed dementia, and so we needed to move back where we would be close, and I lost her last year after 66 years of marriage. And those of you who knew Stephanie, who went on the trip, in May, she resigned her job at Lakewood High. I don't think she'll ask for it back. But she taught French and Spanish in the in the Lakewood schools for about 31 years or something like that. So anyway, I appreciate it. If you have a 50th anniversary, don't count on my attendance.
I'd be remiss if I didn't give anybody a chance to say something that they really want to say about the experience. Who knows when we'll all be here again? Anybody got a minute?
Could everybody just do a show of hands at anybody that still plays their instruments?
Still plays your instruments? Wow.
That's you.
Sorry. A lot of people went to OU because he went to OU because I went there.
I just think,
I just want to say I'm still in touch with my host family.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you know what's evolved and changed is they've lost some members, but that friendship is special to me, and I'm grateful for this.
I just think as a graduating senior who went on the trip that it was kind of hard because when everybody else came back, they were still part of the Ranger Marching Band, but we weren't. But because I stayed in Lakewood and my kids and their cousins were all part of LHS, I've remained part of the group. And I told you last night, I mean, the Ranger dude, he's still the logo and pride, discipline, commitment, respect. You started that, and it still continues.
I remember that Frank's coming together on the way to rehearsal. I had one rehearsal, and I thought, we need a logo. Or we need something. We need an idea. What do we have? What can we use more of? What do we have? What could we use more of? Right? It's all this. And I had to announce that Friday night, and I guess I still heard it the other night.
Yeah.
I remember. I don't know if any of you remember. I used to have some of you write when you get in trouble, and there was nobody here, of course. But I would make you write a paper pick one of the words and write a paper. Anybody else? Becky had something.
I just really want to thank you. I mean, you sort of telling me I was quartermaster was the best thing ever. Me being your Radar O'Reilly was like the best job in my life. I mean, Radar was my hero, and it worked out perfect because I basically was the other half of your brain for 3 years, and I loved it. But it really did change my life because by being forced to be responsible and disciplined and a collector of weird things, that's now my life, and I love it. And the Ranger Band and all y'all, I always joked I had 300 sets of parents. I think we all did. And having that ability to walk into a room and go, "Mom," and 6 people turn around. You knew that we were a family, and that was absolutely critical to not only our life in high school, but after. And so, I mean, we all had our family bitches, but it was, and I want to say thank you for that.
Yeah, cool. Did you have something? You want to be on a committee?
It's uniforms to sew.
Nothing? Okay.
Do you want to say something?
Were you going to say something? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. You've got the floor.
All I can say is Don and I and our 3 kids all went to England. And it was an experience that was totally wonderful because we had gotten to know you all in the football band, games and everything. And so it was like one big family. And it was an experience because every time we saw one of you, it was, "Hi, Spees." And it was a great experience. You were all culturally behaved in many respects. And it was a terrific experience. That's all I can say. For my whole family and for all of you, because you did such a wonderful job. Every single one of you. We could be proud of you.
Yeah.
And we were. Yes, thank you so much.
Anybody else? Now or 5 years from now, or 10? Yeah.
I'm Beth Todd and I played baritone. And the England trip, I sort of went kicking and screaming because I thought it was just going to be a fiasco. And I ended up, I was so happy that we didn't go to London. I was so happy that we weren't in that part of England because, basically York is a walled medieval town still. And when I went to college then, I majored in medieval history, and now I'm teaching medieval history at Case. And this trip probably pushed me over the edge. And I still remember this all the time. Yeah, so thank you very much.
Anybody else? Yep.
Can I just say, I think this applied to a lot of us where we weren't world travelers, our families just didn't do that. And this opportunity and the fundraising and the providing us that ability to take, for me definitely, and I know others have said, a first airline trip altogether, let alone a first international trip. I'm just forever grateful for that opportunity.
There's somebody who's not here today. My last memory of her, big eyes, big smile, Sue Sherman. And there was somebody else that was mentioned has passed away, that was part of our group.
Laura Brennan.
Oh.
David Lurie.
Dave Moore. Dave, oh, I didn't know this.
And Ray Ondercheck also.
Ray Ondercheck, yeah.
Eric Spriesterbach.
Who?
Eric Spriesterbach.
I didn't know any of that. Wow. Just take a minute, think about it. No. Thank you. Other than him paying, what do we do? How does this work?
Okay, just a few closing comments. I want to thank Slother for your contribution and what you did for the band as well. Thank you. Matt Traum for all your help. Dr. Boyd for your participation and your words today. Thank you. Of course, Mr. Warrick for making the big call. I want to thank Clinton Steinbrenner, the current marching band director, for his help and putting up with my emails and my text messages and my, should we do this, and when can we meet, and when can we do this, and la 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 la. I'm always hounding him, and thank you for your keep the marching band going. Of course,
Can I say something real quick?
Sure.
I just thank you for. I'm glad that this is happening. When I got the job at Lakewood, I knew a friend of a friend. Peter Hampton used to be a choir director here. We had a mutual friend, and so I didn't know much about Lakewood. I knew I was lucky to get the job when I got it, and I've said this before about moving to Cleveland and moving to Lakewood, but there's so much pride here that sometimes as an outsider, it's hard to feel like you're really becoming part of that and understanding the history. So especially with this marching band, it's awesome to get to hear your stories and to know what came before me and the directors that came before me, and it helps me to understand not only where we've been, but where I would like to take the band. So thank you very much.
Well, in all seriousness, being completely serious, take a trip, and I'm seriously saying, come to us for some sponsorship. Seriously.
Yeah.
Because we know what it meant to us, and we've got a little more money now than we did then. So. Except for Matt. Leave him off your list.
And then we have gobs of paperwork.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm not done. Sorry. because I want everyone to be able to reminisce too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sean,
Yes.
for all of his dedication. Years putting this together, heading it off. He dragged me into it. Like I said, I wasn't a band member. I didn't go to England, but I've worked with him for the last few years, and he really has a passion for the alumni band, and you know it.
Yeah.
And you probably all wouldn't be here if it weren't for him.
Yes.
For wanting to put this. My last comment, don't leave Deagan's until you get your check, and tip your waitress well.
Yeah.
She did a lot, they did a lot of work to serve us today, so please, thank you.
Can we get a group photo?
Yeah.
We can try our darndest to do that. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.